so the last bit for this revision set 1 is going through this question, which is linked to our syllabus objective on the formation of tissue fluid. Okay, so we need to learn this. Okay, we must be able to know how the tissue fluid are formed. Right? Okay, so cell signaling molecules are steroid or lipid hormones. They are transported in the bloodstream to reach the capillary networks. And then at the capillary network, hormones pass out of the blood into the tissue fluid. And this is showing our capillary network. Okay, so this is blood from the artery. That's blood to the vein. And in our notes, okay, I actually use here, okay, this is the arterial end. Okay. Okay, that's what I use in my slide. Okay. And then this would be the venous end. Now, arterial and venous. Arterial is basically the smallest artery, and venous is the smallest vein. Alright. Describe the differences between the blood arriving at the arterial end of the capillary, so which is here in the arterial, right, and the tissue fluid surrounding the body cells. Now, again, answering skills, when we are asked to describe differences, make sure you write in comparative sentences and your sentence must be complete. So, for example, if A has this, B is absent, okay, or if it's higher or lower, A has higher, okay, comparative, B has lower, okay. That's what I mean by comparative sentences or statements. Anyway, so going back to this one, this is involved as part of your learning objective where you must be able to explain how the tissue fluid is being formed. And then the idea that you must take note what are the structures that are unable to pass through the endothelial gaps of the capillaries, not the capillaries, of the, capillaries. Hold on. Okay, oops, sorry about that. Okay, so remember your capillaries. Okay, so basically we have very thin one layer. Okay, anyway, just a quick recap on the structure of capillary. You can remember that they have very small, so it's the smallest blood vessels that we have. It has very thin one cell thick of endothelial cell. Okay, and then that endothelial cells also have tiny gaps in between, very, very small holes, right? Okay, so what happens is that, okay, when tissue fluid are formed, okay, it is due to what known as the pressure filtration, right? Pressure filtration occur where it forces fluid to actually move out of the plasma into the capillaries, okay, out of the plasma into the capillaries, okay, due to pressure filtration. Now, because the gaps in the endothelial wall is so small and so tiny, anything that's big, for example, okay, the red blood cells, okay, a lot of red blood cells, ataupun plasma proteins, big proteins, right? Okay, they remain inside the blood plasma, in the blood vessel. They don't get pushed out into the tissue fluid. Right? Anything that's small, including our oxygen, glucose, right? They are able to enter, okay, in the fluid surrounding the cells, which creates our tissue fluid. And you will see some other materials. That's what the question is asking here. All right. So, blood in the arterial ends will contain red blood cell and large plasma proteins. Okay, so they are found in the blood, but they are absent in the tissue fluid. So notice how I wrote my sentence, comparative, and they're complete. Okay, A has this, B has that, or B does not have that, for example. Okay, that's the first point. Moving on, there is higher numbers of white blood cells in the blood, okay, at the arterial end compared to the tissue fluid, because there's a lot of them remains in the blood. Okay, some are able to, okay, go pass through that endothelial gaps and enter the tissue fluid. There is higher comparative statement, concentration of oxygen in the arterial end compared to the tissue fluid. There is lower, again, comparative statement, concentration of carbon dioxide in the arterial end compared to tissue fluid. So I make sure that my sentences are complete. And there's also higher concentration of glucose in the arterial end compared to the tissue fluid. And then the pressure in the arterial end is also higher than the pressure in the tissue fluid. So any of these 3 points will give you 3 marks. Okay? And then you can ignore the last bit because this one is talking about lymph, which is no longer in our syllabus. Okay, that's a quick one for the last bit of this set.